Steve Politi from NJ Advanced Media. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. It's over. Joined by James Crass, Keith Sargent. If I haven't mentioned already, the Chris Ashe era is over. It's incredible. And, you know, we have a lot of time, literally months, to discuss what's going to come next. We're going to get into it. I just want, we'll get all the coaching candidates. We'll do that a million times. Fellas, I just have to start here because we just need to acknowledge what a remarkable thing this is for Rutgers, for a place that has for so long done things on the cheap and has put off the inevitable and couldn't scrape together, the loose change necessary to buy out Kyle Flood in 2013. It's just, the set of circumstances for this place to fire a coach in late September, owing him $8.5 million. It's just an astounding. Rutgers looks more like Auburn than it does Rutgers now. Sarge, I want you to start here, and I know this. You could spend an hour just talking about this period, but what happened over the last 48 hours to get us to this point?
Well, just to piggyback off what you just said, how unprecedented this is. I'm doing some of the research now, but the last time it really happened, where a college football coach was fired in season for just being bad, no scandal, might be Lane Kiffin in 2013. That just is.
Wow.
We talked about this.
There was a scandal there too, dude. That was not just he wanted to get out.
He was bad. Yeah, he was just bad. But this doesn't happen, and we've talked about this before. It's college football. The pros, if you want to cut bait after 4 games, fine. College football, you generally let it play out the season. Very rare. What happened? I just think that the plan was all along, from what I've been told, was they're going to get halfway through the season, 6 games. That would be after Indiana, and then evaluate it from there. And then by then, if they were sitting at 1-5, maybe even 2-4, they would know where the season was going, because you have November and all the gauntlet that awaits in November.
Right.
I just think that the 52-0 game against how non-competitive, and I wrote about it, it just proved once and for all they are not a Big Ten caliber team. They have not scored a point in 2 Big Ten games, let alone been competitive. I just think it was jarring. And again, like I said, I think the initial plan was, 6 games, get to Indiana right before homecoming, evaluate it then. But I just think that, at this point, they're not competitive. Pat-Hobbs, the key thing that he said was progress, significant progress. Very interesting to note that in a statement, he mentioned the word progress and said that they weren't making the progress that he had hoped. And, it's surprising, 4 games in, unprecedented, but, that's basically what happened.
Pratchett, were you surprised?
I was surprised that it happened this early. I always thought, and I'm not trying to take credit, but I always said, even when we were talking behind the scenes, just the 3 of us, that I always thought Maryland would be the breaking point, because you'd be 1-4 at that point. The path to a bowl would be cut off. But I applaud Pat-Hobbs for doing. He made the right move. I think at this point, donors, boosters, fans, they were tired of looking at Chris Ashe.
Yeah.
And his program was going absolutely nowhere. It was time for him to move on. There was no way possible that he was ever going to fix this himself.
I guess
I think at that point, you just got to let go.
He said he made the right move. I guess, and I asked him point blank about this, but if you're going to make this move in September, you should have made it in December.
Well, I agree with that. No, he should have. Yes, he should have fired Chris after last season.
Right.
But he at least fixed the problem relatively early in this season.
When did you guys know? And this is the question I was thinking about. What was your first inkling that Ashe wasn't the guy? And I come back to this, and this is early on, and certainly I didn't write it at the time, but they had a press conference introducing the assistant coaches after he got here, the first round of coaches he brought in. And I remember thinking at the time, man, he is paying no mind to the fact that this university is in New Jersey. And it just struck me that the staffing there was a mistake. And we kind of had a hunch early on it was a mistake. That might have been the moment that I knew, all right, this guy is not, right for this job. Sarge, was there a moment early on that you kind of had a hunch that, okay, this is not going to work out well?
Not early on. I will say, they were 4-8, in year 2. Going into year 3, the moment was, I'll go back to July of last summer, when we found out, and we broke the news on the credit card stuff that 8 players were involved, and relatively 8 players who would have helped last season that would have, obviously helped the defensive back end of the defense. When that happened, for 2 reasons. One, I knew it was going to impact depth. And that was the one thing that all along you knew that they didn't have Big Ten level depth. You take 8 players away, particularly from one position group. I knew that was going to impact it there. And then the other thing was from the culture shifting stuff, that everything that Chris Ash had tried to implement, all of a sudden it became hollow in some ways. And we've talked about the credit card thing before. Like in so many ways, that was not something that Chris Ash had any control over. Like, he's not in their dorm rooms 24/7. That there was, but it was just from a standpoint that you knew that, now he has that on his resume. Now all of a sudden he's going to lack depth. That's probably when I knew, and then it became proven by how the season played out.
Crash, you made a great point on Twitter now, and I think there's already been some revisionist history about, well, it's a hard job. He inherited a bad situation. Let's be clear on this. No one had more resources than Chris Ash. No one asked for more and got it than Chris Ash. I mean, the practice fields, the weight room, the locker room, on the $650,000 assistant salaries. I mean, on nutrition program, and give you 10 things he demanded and got, and did nothing with it. I mean, I guess that, when you look at the history of Chris Ash, that's going to be part of it.
No, definitely. For me, I obviously did not cover his entire career here like you guys did. When they lost to Kansas and he got in the press conference, it was kind of cavalier, like, well, we're rebuilding. What do you expect?
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, no, like one of the things I always felt about Chris was he didn't seem to understand that he coached a horrific football team in the state of New Jersey. Right. And that people are not going to go get him next time, coach. It's a hard, no, you coach a bad football team in New Jersey. People are going to ask you tough questions. They're going to write negative things because that's what it calls for.
Right.
And for me, when they went to Wisconsin last season, having a bad year, you had the Isaiah Bullock stuff early in that week. You get to Wisconsin and you've got a Badgers team that wasn't terribly good, but they're still Wisconsin. You're in Camp Randall Stadium. I think Saquon Hampton had 2 picks in the first half. You have that team on the ropes. You have a 4th and 7 on their 44 right before the first half. You're getting the ball to start the second half. You had a chance to score there and potentially take a lead on Wisconsin in their own building in the second half, and what would have been a program-changing win in every which way. That was not a very good Wisconsin team, and he punts.
Yeah. Yep.
And at this point, I was like, this guy doesn't get that. It's not Ohio State. He doesn't have the talent. He has to do something to change the narrative. And it was just also little stuff. I don't want to hammer him too much, because I will say this. I agree with what pat-hobbs said. I do think there's a very good chance Chris will be a head coach again someday. Not necessarily at the Big Ten, but, a group of 5 school, a MAC school, an FCS school. And I think he'll have success, because I think if he's in a program that I think is in the Midwest, I think he'd have a lot more success. I think this wasn't a good fit for him. Right. I do think there's, when Ben McAdoo got fired for the Giants, I'm like, this guy might never work again. There's a good head coach somewhere inside Chris Ash. And I think that he'll get a second chance down the road, because look, I think he's going to be a defensive coordinator at a top 25 program next season.
Right.
He knows he knows how to coach defense. So, and it was just little stuff when the field hockey team makes the NCAA tournament for the first time in 30 years, you should congratulate Meredith Civico at your Monday press conference. You should show up to the AP Center opening, the APC opening, this little stuff. He just never seemed very comfortable being the head coach of the program.
All right, we got a new head coach, interim head coach, Nunzio Campanile. And it's just amazing too to think that you got a Big Ten program that now is turning to a guy who was preparing to play Hackensack a couple of years ago. I mean, that's the reality now. I mean, I'm not saying anything wrong with him. I think he's a bright young coach. He did really well at his press conference today, but now you are saying, all right, we need Nunzio Campanile not only to hold this program together, but to coach the offense, because you fired John McNulty too. It is a big ask for him. Sarge, you were at the press conference today. I mean, what did you think about the answers he gave to the hard questions?
Well, I think he won the press conference, which is hard to do when you're 4 games into it and you're talking about a 1-3 program. And I think he handled himself well. I think from a Rutgers insider standpoint, they're hoping that he can catch lightning in a bottle. The safer choice would have been John McNulty, and I'm sure we could talk about John McNulty and what happened with him in a few. The safer choice would have been John McNulty, maybe even Andy Boo, their play callers, or even Pete Rosamondo, who a couple months ago was a head coach at Central Connecticut State. Those would have been safer choices. This one is a outside the box, catch lightning in a bottle. A guy who was known as an innovative coach albeit at the high school level, ran a spread offense that maybe will reinvigorate the team. It's an outside the box type move. From that standpoint, I applaud it.
Yeah, I mean, he always, I will say this, at Bergen Catholic, he always had better talent, though. I mean, he's in a situation now where he doesn't have that. I mean, the offense has been a hot mess, 0 points in Big Ten games. I mean, it's been a hot mess since Chris Ash got here. What is the hope for the final 8 games, Cratch? I mean, just like is there something that can be gained here, or are we just really just waiting until the white smoke from pat-hobbs office comes out and we find out the new coaches?
I think the hope for the final 8 games is excite the fan base, shot in the arm, get people, supporting the kids, supporting the university, excited about the program again. Obviously be a good steward, make sure this doesn't become a mess, but they got 8 games left. I think a good goal for Nunzio would be beat Liberty, win 1 Big Ten game.
Right. All right. So I know the only thing anybody wants to talk about is who the next coach is going to be. I wrote a column. I mean, I think echoed what I get the sense that half the fan base agrees with me and half the fan base wants to kill me for writing it, that it needs to be Greg Schiano. And there's 4 reasons why right off the bat. You get interest in season tickets. You get recruiting stabilized. You get just credibility, a jolt of, excitement from the fans. I mean, there's just reasons to do this. Let's dive into true or false. I've got a special edition of true or false, the coaching candidate true or false this week. I've asked this question on Twitter to everyone who emails me about Greg Schiano. I just put it to him this way. I just say, give me a better and a better realistic option. In other words, a better option is Urban Meyer. A realistic option is not Urban Meyer, right? Like, realistic option is Lance Leopold. That's not a better option, the Buffalo coach. So I got a list of true or falses for you. You can answer both true and false on better, and true or false and realistic on these names. Are you guys ready?
Yep. Ready.
All right. Butch Jones, better and realistic, true or false? Scratch.
False.
False on both?
Yes.
False and false and realistic, true.
Okay. Jason Candle, a hot name, the Toledo coach, better and realistic, Cratch.
Definitely true, unrealistic. Better, I'm going to push till the end of the season.
Okay. Sarge?
False on better and true.
Wow. Okay. Unrealistic. All right. Jeff Monken, Army coach, better and realistic, Cratch.
True and true.
You really had to ask Cratch that? Like, come on. We couldn't skip that one?
I was going to save that for the end, but I just couldn't resist. What do you think, Sarge?
False and false.
False. All right. Joe Moorhead, the Mississippi State coach, a Northeast guy, better and realistic, Cratch.
False that he's better. False that he's realistic.
Really? Okay. I would go back to that one. Sarge?
I'm going to piss off a lot of people. Let's get back to clarify this at the end. I'll say true and false.
Okay. True and false. Pat Narduzzi, the Pitt coach. Is he better and is he realistic? Cratch.
False and true.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Sarge?
False and true.
Wow. Okay. Rex Ryan. Better and realistic. Cratch.
False and false.
Sarge?
Wow. False and false.
You'd be surprised how many times that name ends up in my inbox, guys. All right. Steve Adazio. Is he better and is he realistic? Go, Cratch.
Realistic, true. Better, false.
Yeah, same answer.
Okay. Same answer. Al Golden. Better and realistic? Sarge? Cratch? Who's going first? Cratch?
I'm going to say false and false, but I'm higher on the golden candidacy that doesn't exist than most would be.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Al Golden, to be honest with you. I think he's underrated from his Miami tenure. I know that I'm only supposed to say true or false, but I'll say false, better, true, realistic.
All right. Finally, Bo Pelini. Is he a better and is he a more realistic option? Cratch.
I don't false that it's realistic, but actually I'm going to say true.
There you go. Oh, gosh. All right. What do you got?
False as far as better and true. I think you'd probably take it.
All right, so there's the list. I mean, who am I missing in that list? I guess is the first question. There's some name, a big name I didn't put on this when I was just sketching this out.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it. And I just profiled a guy. If you really want to think outside the box, a guy who's done it, who's in Jersey, right down the road. I mean, Bob Surace of Princeton. It's a big leap, of course, but is he better? Yeah. I would say that there's probably better names. He's realistic, probably.
Yes. Yep. Cratch, anybody I miss?
I don't believe so. No, I'm going to pull up my list at the moment, but I think you got everybody.
And it just goes back to what I was thinking, that it's really not a great. I mean, who knows? Again, you've got 3 months of the season. Someone could just take off and be, the hot MAC coach of the week. But, and I've seen a lot of lesser names, Eastern Michigan guy, a couple other guys' names have popped up. But, I mean, people have floated names like Jim Levitt out there who had to Google just to see where he was, the former USF coach. I mean, just kind of crazy season. Let's go back to a couple of these names on this list, because I do think the one, if it's Joe Moorhead, that he's the one name where I am ready to say it's better. And I think it's better just because he's an offensive guy, and this program really could use someone, on that side of the ball, just to give it the offense just a vision. Just, it hasn't had that in years. It's just, finally someone can come in here and put a stamp on it in that way. But I don't think it's realistic that he's going to leave Mississippi State unless something, bad happens down there. What other names came up? You said no. You both were down on Pat Narduzzi and Adazio. Is that my sense?
I'll answer that first. First on Moorhead, I'll clarify. I said false on realistic. I think there's a chance. I mean, he's a Pittsburgh guy who spent a lot of time at Fordham. So New York, there's always a chance that he wants to come back. SEC, Mississippi State, you're never going to overtake Alabama and Auburn and the tradition. So maybe there's a chance that he wants to get back home. So I'll amend my answer as far as I'll say true on both. And the reason why I say true, like you said, from an offensive standpoint, they are a historically bad offense. I mean, a historically bad college football offense. And from that standpoint, Greg's a defensive guy. He had some from just his tenure. He had some challenges from an offensive standpoint. That's the only reason why I say true. I think maybe Greg has a plan. He's been out for a while. Maybe he has a plan that is going to fix the offense. I'm not discounting that, but I just think that they need to solve the offense once for all. My Narduzzi statement again. I just think, he's very similar to Greg, both defensive guys. I think I'd rather have Greg Schiano.
Yeah. Cratch, any other names you want to revisit really quick?
I'll save my Monken stuff for NJ.com later in the week.
And it's going to be a
might not even right. He might be Jeff Monken's agent at that point.
Exactly.
That's true. Jason Candle to me is interesting. I know everyone's high on him because they score a lot of points at Toledo. They just beat BYU this weekend, although beating BYU isn't really what it used to be.
Right.
It's a good win. My thing is he took over from Matt Campbell, who's obviously at Iowa State, and you could maybe throw him on this list because I think there's a natural ceiling at Iowa State, and he's probably hit it. But I think he's a guy when the Cleveland Browns were interested in you're probably thinking bigger than Rutgers.
Yeah, of course.
He went 21-7 his first 2 seasons after taking over Campbell, won the MAC. They went 7-6 last year. They're 3-1 this year. If they go 9-3 this year, 10-2, I'd be like, okay, great, consider Jason Candle. But if they go 7-6 again, I'm not. He's a guy who's from Ohio, played in Ohio, like he's never left the state of Ohio in his life.
Right.
So I just think that you need to be very careful about hiring another Chris Ash-like coach, but this guy just happens to score a lot of points because their defense has been kind of bad too. They give up 30, 40 points a lot at Toledo. So I think you got to be careful about that as well.
Right. All right. We have a new feature here, a new weekly feature to the end of the season. We're calling it the Greg Schiano Rumor of the Week. And it seems like, I don't know, I mean, it was amazing. And I was out in Las Vegas and my head was spinning already for many reasons, trying to catch up with what was going on. But when the news broke, there were like 7 things on the internet that were just like, oh my God, that's not true. So Kratz, this is your weekly feature. What in your mind, what is the hottest of hot takes, Greg Schiano rumors of the week this week?
That Greg Schiano left Ohio State. A month later, decided to join in principle the New England Patriots. And then a month after that, told Bill Belichick he was leaving to prepare because he was guaranteed to be the next Rutgers coach at a date to be determined when Chris Ash was fired.
Right.
I mean, that's just a lot. That's a lot going on there.
That's incredible. I know.
People wanted Ash fired in November of 2018. I think they would have sent the bat signal to Greg before he agreed to go coach for Bill Belichick.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and to do that to all people, Belichick. I don't know why people can't just accept the fact the guy had family issues. I think his daughter was back in Columbus, and she gave him an ultimatum. I'm not going to move, or something happened that he just decided that put family before. I mean, the guy's always been like that. So, Sarge, what are your thoughts?
His 2 sons who are playing college football, and maybe you wanted to see them play their final college football season. That rumor could not be more false. Pat-Hobbs went out of his way to say that there are reports out there that he has not talked to anyone. Could not be more false. And look, I mean, there's going to be a silly season, as Crash likes to say. There have already been stuff, that have been floated about other things, about the process, that the decision was made 2 weeks ago. It was not. This was something that happened Saturday night, the decision. And then, obviously, it was finalized on Sunday. This was not a decision that was made 2 weeks ago. And, the Schiano thing is just laughable.
All right. Project Text, and guys, I think we saw the value of Project Text as this was going on. We added a bunch of subscribers based on the news. NJ.com/text. It was broken. Keith Sarge broke this news on Project Text. Very important. It's just a great place to get your news. Hope you can sign up because you're going to want it during the coaching search. And also, we just got the great questions. We're going to answer a bunch of them, more than we possibly can answer this week, unfortunately, but let's get into them. Okay. I'm curious about what constitutes success now. How many wins do they need? If success is playing the game the right way, or are they not doing that? That's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, if you're, and Pat Hobbs said a couple words today that I think you loved today, Kratz. He said that success should be the Rose Bowl. Is that
exactly
right? Is that right?
Yes. I mean, I've been waiting for this ever since I got on the beat. And I think I've written this before. Today was the first day when Pat Hobbs said, I want to win a Big Ten championship. I want to go to the Rose Bowl. Yeah. It was the first time since I've been covering Rutgers that someone has articulated an actual goal for the football program.
Right.
Every other program, Steve Peichel wants to go to the NCAA tournament. Scott Goodale wanted national champions. Chris Ash talked about the plan and the process and improvement and building. And it was like, he wouldn't even say yes, I would like to win this football game in 5 days. Yeah. He wouldn't even go that far. So finally, someone at Rutgers says, this is the goal. This is what we're striving for. Do I think it's going to happen anytime soon? No. But finally, someone has said, this is what we want to accomplish. This is what we are striving for. Because just talking about a plan that no one seems to know what it is did not work.
Right. Yep. All right. The next one. What are 5 or so mistakes that the next head coach must avoid in order to be more successful than Ash was? I think, the list could be longer than 5, Sarge. But I mean, give me a few that are just at the absolute
I'll give you
top of that
the first list. 2 is 1, the staff has to be a home run, and it has to have a lot loaded with jersey ties. It has to be. And as I know for a fact from talking to Pat Hobbs and other people, behind the scenes that a staff is going to be number one. That's going to be maybe Hobbs' number one question when he goes through it. Number 2. Kind of similar, but you're going to have to resonate with the high school coaches in the state. It's the only way to get it done. It's going to take. It took Greg Schiano a long time to get the top 10 kids in the state. So you don't need to get all the top 10 guys. You need to get one or two probably on an annual basis, and then you need to get the next wave. Chris Ash couldn't do it. Kyle Flood couldn't do it toward the end of his tenure. Those are the two things that stand out.
Right. All right. This is another one for you, Sarge. I think. Will the timing of the new president have a negative effect on the head coaching opening? As a candidate will care a lot about who the president is and whether or not they're a supporter of athletics. I mean, the first thing I will say, I think, whoever it is will be more supportive of athletics than Robert Barchi. But is that a thing? I mean, if you're a guy who has options, you're going to look at that.
I think it'll be a question that the coach, whoever the coach is going to want to ask. But I do think that, you have an AD who has, clearly at least, has, seems to have a lot of say in a lot of things, seems to be pretty confident in his ability to lead. So you have that going for you. I don't think it's a factor. I'll be honest, everybody who I've talked to, I've asked that question. They've all downplayed it, saying that Barchi's here long enough or you'll be able to meet the person. I don't think we're going to see a radical change as far as, the next president. I think they're going to have similar ideals. And I would just argue from the standpoint that with Barchi and athletics, over the last couple of years, we've talked about this before. There's probably for another podcast down the line, but I think he failed miserably in keeping Julie Herman for as long as he did. But in the last couple of years, he's rubber stamped almost everything. They've built buildings. He's opened up the checkbook. He didn't balk at the $8.47 million. I think from that standpoint, Barchi's been pretty good from athletics, and I'll say that I don't think the next president is going the uncertainty with the president, I think, has any impact whatsoever.
Before we move on to the next one, where are they getting that money from?
It's a great question. Because
there's a lot of well-off people who didn't not want Chris Ash to be the head football coach.
Okay. Exactly.
I'll say this. I mean, you've heard this for years. That's always been, coaches will, Julie Herman tried to pass a hat after during the South Florida game in 2011. So that never happened. Donors, boosters, want to put their names on buildings. They don't want to put their names on severance packages. That's not what they want to do.
Right.
I think Rutgers is going to have to say this is the cost of doing business, and you have to fix football. We reported the numbers on attendance. We reported the numbers on what it means from donations are down and all that. The only way to fix it is by winning in football. The only way to win in football is by paying market rate for a Big Ten coach, which is over $3 million. You're paying Chris Ash $2.3 this season. You're going to have to go over $3. My understanding is they're going to be try to be competitive as far as their Big Ten peers.
Right. All right. Next question from the Project Text, Rutgers Insider thing. Do you think Nunzio lets Langdon start the rest of the year, and do they let them throw? Johnny Langdon obviously was his quarterback at Bergen Catholic. We asked him about that today. Kratch, his answer was Art's the guy, but there are 8 games. I mean, what do you think? Are we going to see a new quarterback before this is over?
As long as Art keeps playing the way he has the last 2 weeks, I think it's kind of been the underrated story with this team.
Yeah.
Art seems to maybe kind of turn the corner and figured this out a little bit. I think we'll see more of Langdon in packages, but I don't think that Langdon is going to overtake Art unless Art starts to falter or if he gets injured. The other question I think we got was how many players do we think will transfer, decommit out now that Ash is gone? I asked Nunzio today. He said, as of now, no one has left or entered the transfer portal, which you're seeing around the country. Like some players at 4 games are saying, okay, I'm done for the rest of the year to reassess my options. So far hasn't been anything. I mean, but I would expect there's always turnover when a new coach comes in, especially if it's an outside hire.
Yeah. How many guys realistically would you be concerned about? Blackshear, Pacheco, Avery Young. I mean, the number is not. Art, Art definitely on the list, but the number's not 10, is it? I mean, just being realistic, how many guys would they be worried?
You're right. You're right. It's probably about 10 there. Yeah. We can add it all up later.
Yeah. All right. Another question just about, do you think a coach can be hired mid-season? And if he does, can he start recruiting and preparing for next season? Have any other teams done things like that? Sarge, I can't think of one. It doesn't seem like that's the direction that Pat-Hobbs is going to go in. Could he go in that direction, though? Are there rules against it? I mean, what is the
there are no
process?
rules. I mean, could he? Yes, he could. I mean, if it was going to be, the only person I could think of is Schiano, maybe Bush Jones, who's I guess he's a quality controller. Like he's not, at Alabama. So maybe those would be the only two. But could he? Yes. But will he? No. He's going to give Nunzio. He's going to give him the entire season to show what he can do.
And that segues right into the last one we've got here. On the crazy end of the spectrum, what does Nunzio need to do to get the job long term? And I mean, again, I've said it already. I don't know the guy. I think he's going to be a great young coach. I just can't imagine he would be a realistic candidate based on his limited experience. Cratch, do you disagree?
I mean, I think it's going to be very difficult for him to get the job long term. If to offer a crazy answer to a crazy question, I would say he needs to go 4-4, minimize the blowouts. I think you can get away with getting blown out by Ohio State. Everything else is going to have to be competitive. I think he would probably need to beat one of those final three teams, Ohio State, Penn State, or Michigan State. And also what Sarge said, the staff. I mean, if he goes to Pat and has success and says, I'm going to bring my brother Anthony home, I can get Jim Panagos back, I can maybe suck it up and hire Chris Partridge, I can bring this guy in, then I think maybe that helps him get the job.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big thing to staff. I think recruiting is a big thing. I mean, there's recruits out there. I mean, he from my understanding, he's gotten a good percentage of the recruits in his current class. Can he close the deal with some other Jersey guys who are out there? That's going to be a big thing. And then obviously winning. I mean, can they win 4-5 games? The rest of the way. I think those are the three things that will give him a realistic chance.
All right, finally, our prediction. Holy crap, they're playing a game. We haven't mentioned it yet, but on Saturday, there's going to be a football game in Piscataway. How about that, guys? I mean, that kind of got overlooked here. Let me just check my notes. It appears they're playing the University of Maryland. How about that, coming in here after their own 59-0 loss to Penn State? I mean, not that it really matters anymore, but this is going to be a real test here. Does Nunzio's appointment, does the firing of Chris Ash, does it give this team a jolt? And I think we're going to find out pretty quickly against a Maryland team I think is without question more talented, but not any better. So, Cratch, you got a prediction? What do you think is going to happen?
Wow, I haven't even thought about this.
No,
my thing with Maryland is that we saw it last year, and it's a little bit different. Like they've got a lot of athletes and kind of guys who can do things in space on offense, and that's been a real issue for this Rutgers defense. Although maybe Andy Boo will actually dial up some pressures and some blitzes. We'll see. I think that's a big thing too. What is the defense going to look like post Chris Ash? I will say I think Maryland wins the game, but I will say I think it's a spirited fight from the Scarlet Knights. I don't even know what the line is, so I can't make a cover or not cover prediction at this point. But I think the team will play well. I do think they will respond, but I just think Maryland is probably a little bit better at this point.
All right, Sarge, what do you think?
I picked Rutgers to beat Maryland before the year, so.
Yeah, so did I.
I mean, there's no truth to the rumor that I'm going to appeal to try to get that prediction scrubbed, that podcast scrubbed, by the way, because my prediction at the beginning of the year. I think Maryland's going to win. But I agree. I think that we'll see a good effort. It's always intriguing to see, the type of, jolt that it provides. I think Maryland's going to win 2013.
2013. All right. So I just looked up the line. What do you want to play? You want to play guess? Want to play the guess the game? This is like the ratings that Mike and the Mad Dog used to do. What do you think the line is on this game? Cratch, what do you got?
12.5 points, Maryland favorite.
All right. Sarge, you're going over or under?
Under.
14.5 Maryland favorite. Ooh. Wow. That is something else. I guess that they did start out the game, the season outscoring their first two opponents 142-20. Yeah, and I'm gonna go with you guys too. I think Maryland's probably gonna win this by about that margin. And it just comes back to there's so much upheaval in this program. They haven't been able to connect on a lot of things in the past, and in the offense, they haven't scored a point yet. The defense, it's just getting worn out. I just think it's going to be a really long, hard slog to the end for this team without many opportunities to win. So I'm going to go, Maryland 31-14 kind of range. All right, guys, that was a pretty chock full podcast. Do we have anything else we want to talk about before we say goodbye? I mean, we're going to have 8 weeks of this.
I'll say, and you probably heard my phone buzzing, but that was a top Rutgers official calling. So I took all of my might not to disconnect from this podcast.
That would have been great. Scratch and I would have just been sitting there going, and Sarge?
I could have put it on speakerphone if you wanted, but I don't know if you would have appreciated it.
And what about you, Cratch? Any final thoughts?
No. We got 2 months of this, man.
2 months of this. Buckle up. The coaching search from hell begins today. Steve Politi, James Cratch, Keith Sargent, and his cell phone signing off. And we'll be back after the Maryland game to have the same exact conversation again. Thanks for listening.